This video discusses the most important lesson we can learn from the ability of German masqueraders in America to keep millions of murders secret for 30 long years. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. In an earlier video, I had explained how German masqueraders in America were able to cremate 5 to 6 million American white adults and children of non German ancestry alive in electric crematoriums and murder 3 to 4 million more medically or by other means. These murders started on a mass scale beginning around 1970-71 after Charlie Munger, who I believe to be the senior partner in crime of the duo, and Warren Buffett took the helm of masquerader leadership in America and continued for 30 long years before the masqueraders were fully exposed around 2000 to 2001. They were able to keep these murders secret for 30 long years. Their success in achieving this lies in the methods they used to choose the victims, particularly those who were cremated alive. The method of using electric crematoriums was extremely effective because the dead body could no longer existed to be buried, then to be exhumed later to gather forensic evidence if a murder was suspected. The body had been turned to ashes, which were mixed with the earth. The person seemingly vanished from the face of the earth. But one would think when you commit 5 to 6 million murders by cremating people alive in electric crematoriums over a 30-year period from 1970 to 2000, surely few people, at least some, may have noticed someone entering a building and then, when a person is reported that is reported missing, then that person pointing it out to law enforcement that they would see it, and then the law enforcement would discover the electric crematorium there and conduct an inquiry about the disappearance of the person. But all such murders were kept hidden from law enforcement officials who were not masqueraders for 30 long years. The key to keeping such murders hidden was the choice of victims. The victims chosen were loners whom no one would miss and no one would care if they vanished. To continue murdering more people, the number of loners had to be created. That's where threats delivered electronically were put to maximum use. Here is one of the methods among many that were used. With threats, a husband and wife would be forced to divorce. The wife would be given custody of the kids. With threats, the husband and the wife's parents would be told to never see her again. She would be told to move away from her parents. Masqueraders also controlled much of the welfare benefits given through state and local governments. She would have to live in poverty for some time, as even giving her welfare benefits would be made extremely difficult. After some years, her parents and other family and friends would have lost contact with her. Now she and her kids were perfect candidates to be cremated alive in an electric crematorium. In other cases, young white women were forced with threats to date interracially, mainly African American men. She would be shunned by her family and isolated from family and friends. Then the African American man dating her would lead her to an electric crematorium under the guise of attending the funeral of a friend or relative. That's where she would be cremated alive. A similar process would be followed when a masquerader would date a non-masquerader white woman. With threats, she would be forced to move away from family and friends and have no contact with them. Then she would become a perfect candidate to be cremated alive by her masquerader boyfriend. I have seen a case with my own eyes in which two very handsome looking white young men were forced to live with a black family on welfare for a few days with no male adult in the house under the guise of dating their daughter. After a few days, they would go back home and then be forced to visit the black family again and again. After some time, I am quite certain both young men were cremated alive. The evidence was that the female of the house certainly got a decent job, in which I am certain her performance was not of much concern, and the children all started wearing brand new clothes which they could not afford earlier. Yes, in addition to masqueraders, millions of African American families knew what was going on, participated in these murders for 30 long years, kept silent, and enjoyed the financial benefits given to them by masqueraders. Thus, the key to cremating alive 5 to 6 million people and getting away with it was to find ways to first isolate the victims thoroughly so that no one would miss their presence. Then, cremated people do not leave a body behind to allow obtaining forensic evidence to investigate the murder. There were other factors why cremation of 5 to 6 million people alive remained undetected for 30 long years. The enemy was unrecognizable. We thought they were part of us. Their names were Smith, Mackenzie, Murkowski, Taylor, Miller, Buffett, Bishop, etc., just like the rest of us. They were indistinguishable from us. They were our friends. Among them were some of the sweetest people because of the way they treated us. So we simply could not imagine that people vanishing without a trace were being murdered. We could not suspect any Christian American of carrying out heinous crimes in huge numbers. After all these people were Christians, and the victims had been separated from family and friends for a few years and had lost touch with them. Parents may have reported their adult children and grandchildren missing. When inquiries were made, they would have admitted that they had not been in close touch with them for some time. So the police would simply end the investigation with the excuse that they could not unearth any information about the missing adult or child. They could not find them. When reports of so many missing adults and children began to pile up in police departments, even the non masquerader police might have thought that the reported missing people were loners anyway and must have simply moved away, not wanting anyone to know their whereabouts. No one could have imagined that they were murdered because there was no dead body to be found. Of course, masquerader law enforcement officers would have squelched any investigations as quickly as possible. Mainstream middle class Americans simply paid no attention to such reports, thinking that it must be some poverty stricken people who simply could not get their lives together to take care of themselves and drifted away somewhere or simply just passed away. As long as no one in their own family or among their friends was missing, they did not worry too much about the missing adults or children. They had heard that the number of missing was large, but could not imagine how large. So, what is the most important lesson we can learn from these events? The lesson is that the people who became victims caved in to the electronically delivered threats of the masqueraders. There is no doubt that the threats delivered must have sounded terrible in their graphic detail. That's why millions come to them. But the electronic threats must have been delivered to tens of millions more who did not obey exactly as they were ordered to do. Let me repeat that. The electronic threats must have been delivered to tens of millions or more who did not obey exactly as they were ordered to do by the threats. They did not break their family and friendship ties. The families stayed close together and made up their minds to face together as a close knit family whatever trial or violence or calamity came their way as a result of not obeying these threats. Because the masqueraders could not isolate the family members, they could not follow through on their scheme to lead the intended victims to electric crematoriums. Americans, particularly white Americans of non German ancestry, please do not forget this extremely important lesson. Only those who gave in to the masquerader threats by obeying them and cutting off ties with family and friends, perished in this bigger Holocaust than the Jewish Holocaust in World War II. Those who stayed close to family and friends despite dire threats survived the horrible 30 years of calamity on white Americans of non German ancestry. In my life, whenever I have faced situations in which my wisdom could not show me the way to go, I have without hesitation relied on God's way as described in the pages of the Bible. And that way is to love one another, stay close together as families and friends, looking out for each other's welfare. That is a very important safeguard for facing any of life's challenges, including hidden ones. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Unmasked Truth with Herman G. Saini, to view and get information on the latest videos.